Baby shark doot 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 doot. Baby shark doot 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 doot. Baby shark doot 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 doot. Baby shark. Shark attack doot 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 doot. Shark attack doot 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 doot. Shark attack doot 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 doot. Shark attack. Lady bobbin doot 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 doot.
Man versus Schlock isn't a fight. It's a slaughter. What is up, everybody? I am Darby Ellis Lewis Wilson, and I am coming at you with another Schlock show, the final installment of Shark Month, our sharksploitation extravaganza. I am joined with Chris Anonymous and Lance the Obscure Movie Guy, all the way from the Lance the Obscure Movie Guy YouTube and podcast. I finally got that right for once, where I didn't have to pause and go, see, where all is he? What is up, guys? We have had a long haul. It's been a 5-banger this month. How are you guys feeling about Shark Month? Thumbs up, thumbs down. Do it again.
Thumbs up, thumbs down, thumbs up, thumbs up.
Mixed reviews, you're saying?
Yes, yeah, and also I have 5 thumbs.
Oh man, I bet you're a great dancer. So yeah, the movie we are talking about is 2018's The Meg. We're talking about it, 1, because it's Shark Month, and 2, because I believe The Meg 2 is coming out this coming week, next week. Do you know, Lance?
I believe it's 2 weeks.
2 weeks? I feel like, now correct me if I'm wrong, I feel like you're a big The Meg fan. Yes.
I would put it in the kaiju category. So yeah, you could say I'm a Meg fan.
Okay. All right. Well, this movie, it's obviously done pretty well. It is coming out with a sequel. As I said, it cost $130 million to make, and it made about $530 million worldwide. I believe it barely made back its budget in the US, but this movie is obviously kind of a international film in a way. A lot of it takes place. I don't know if it takes place in China, but it takes place in that area of the world. And I love to see movies that have kind of a international flavor to them, right? They're not just they're not just like Americans off doing things, right? Like it integrates everybody.
Architects are everywhere, not just Martha's Vineyard.
Yeah, that's what I hear. I hear it's a real problem. No, I don't know. Folks, if I am looking a little worn or distressed, or if Chris is looking a little worn or distressed, man, we just had a really huge weekend. Before we jump into everything, I just got to tell you about the weekend that we had. We just filmed our first schlocky short film. We went with our friends, who are some incredible people, and we invaded their home for a couple of days and got everyone together and filmed something very silly, hopefully a little scary. We're very excited from it. We're very exhausted from it. I'm going to reveal the title to you right now. It's called Teddy Bear. So it involves teddy bears, babysitters, and children. So let your imaginations run wild on that for a little bit, because I think as the weeks and months come, as we're getting it all put together, we're going to be revealing parts and pieces to you more and more as we go, and until we are ready to fully release it to the world. So just wanted to let you know we are pretty off script, I think, because I literally just got back from this whole deal. So Lance, the show's yours, buddy. The floor is yours.
You're running things tonight, man.
So this is why it's good to have a third person on here. But the way we do things around here is we pick these schlocky movies and we like to talk about the good, the bad, and the schlock, what we like, what we didn't like, and what we think are some of the big ideas or the things that really caught our eye in these films. But before we do that, we like to talk about the web of schlock. If we've seen these people before in our schlock journey, or if we'll see them again, or if there's anything interesting. So Chris, who are these nobodies?
Man, yeah, nobodies. Holy cow. Lots of people. Let's just go with the two big names first. Jason Statham, which everyone's seen him in a million things. But, if we're looking at it through kind of that schlock and that kind of just that over the top fun thing. I mean, Crank, The Transporters. I first really learned to appreciate and love him as an actor in some of the really early like Snatch, Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels. There's so many. Great actor, great action actor, and always a pleasure to watch. Rainn Wilson, you might know him from The Office, but if we're going kind of schlock, Super is an amazing movie that if you haven't seen it, you should check out. I know you and I both have a soft spot for Cooties, which he's also in.
Oh, man. I love Cooties.
Love that movie.
Yeah, it's a great movie. Have you seen Super, either of you? It's a James Gunn movie. Yeah, it's dark and fun and crazy.
Yeah, well, give me a second here. Is it where he's like a special needs person being a superhero? And like he has like a jar of bees and he's like, bees, bam, and he throws it at the bad guys.
It's the one where he thinks he's a superhero, but he doesn't have any superpowers, but he has like a wrench and he dresses in a red suit and just goes around and messes
Darby,
people up.
Darby, the one you're thinking of is a very similar movie. It's called Defendor with Woody Harrelson.
Ah, that's right. Okay, back up. Is Super, is it connected to the Brightburn movie? Like no. I've heard there's like a dark superhero verse out there that's slowly building.
I don't think it's connected to anything that I know of, but you should check it out. You might have seen it and forgot, but you need to check it out again. It's amazing.
All right, I'll watch it.
Moving on, the other thing is before and after, some of these other actors got some interesting movies right before this movie and right after this movie. But Bing Bing Lee, she was in Resident Evil Retribution and also Transformers Age of Extinction. Ruby Rose was in John Wick 2 and Resident Evil Final Chapter. So two of the main female leads in this film were in two different Resident Evils. Jessica McNamee, who played Statham's ex-wife in this movie, she went on after this to be Sonya Blade in the reboot of Mortal Kombat.
Oh, really?
Yep. Masi Oka, I'm sure I'm butchering his name, but it's he was in Heroes. He had a huge run in that. And so all these actors, you've seen them in lots and lots of things, but they've all got some kind of that campy, fun kind of B movie, even if it's like a grade A level production kind of vibe going on. So definitely, I think we'll see them all again. And it was a great cast. Moving backstage, John and Eric Hober are two of the screenwriters credited on it. And they, before the Meg, wrote Battleship. And then they were the screenwriters on this year's Transformers Rise of the Beasts.
Okay.
And then the director, John Turteltaub, who I love this director. I've been aware of him for quite some time. I'm not going to list all his movies. He has a lot. You should go look, but I'll kind of go backwards and list some of the major ones. National Treasure 2, National Treasure 1. The Kid was a really good movie with Bruce Willis. If we're moving back into the 90s, then we got Cool Runnings. And then one of his, I think it's his third or fourth movie, I'm saving the best for last. He is the director of Three Ninjas.
Man, I love Three Ninjas.
Right? That's why I saved it. I saved the best for last for you, buddy.
That movie may have like defined my personality as a child. Like
I might go so far as to say that it might still define your personality.
that and Surf Ninjas. You remember that?
Oh man, Surf Ninjas was amazing.
Like to this day, whenever I imagine myself like in my mind's eye of like doing something super cool, I imagine myself with a bandana tied around my head, like I'm one of the like Karate Kid or one of the Three Ninjas or Surf Ninjas.
I mean, you're a fully grown man. You can go buy a red bandana, have it in your pocket, and whenever you need to fill that, you don't got to imagine it, man. You can just put that on. Cool. That's all I'm saying. And then the last dude I'm going to mention is Harry Gregson Williams, and that's a hyphenated name. He's the composer, and that kind of moves into one of my goods, but we'll save that for good. Man, this guy's been doing so many films. It's crazy how many credits, but I'll just name a couple. The Martian, Shrek 3, Shrek 2, Shrek 1, the 2 Narnia movies. And then he also did a lot of video games, but the main things are the Metal Gear Solids.
Okay.
And just a really great composer. So you should. He's also composing the score for the Meg too. And that's it for the Web of Schlock, man. That was a lot.
Okay. Well, I mean, it totally makes sense, like how this movie got made, who was behind the scenes of it, because this movie really does. I mean, it's a blockbuster. It feels like a blockbuster. It has that pacing of a national treasure movie, of a battleship movie. Battleship is one of my favorite So Bad It's Good movies. It just has that big worldwide feel.
Yeah, like a blockbuster.
Yeah. Well, so we're going to get into the good and bad. I'll take the lead on this one this week. So my very first good, and it's something I don't think you mentioned with the cast and crew. And I'm sorry, I don't know this man's name, but Hero from the TV show Heroes.
Yeah,
Hiro
I mentioned him.
Nakamura. Yeah, you did?
Masioka.
Okay. I'm sorry, man. I don't know your name. I just know you as Hero, and I know that I love you, and I just want you to be in more things, because this dude, you cannot be sad watching this guy.
What a great little arc he had in this film for how little he was in it.
Beautiful. The guy, his face, he can't frown. I don't think he can frown. Even when he looks sad, he's still got like some upturned lips. Like he's just the epitome of sunshine. And yeah, the letter to his wife, the spoilers, by the way, I didn't mention that before. We're going to spoil this movie big time. The letter to his wife, man, they did a really great job with making endearing characters in this, making you feel something for the characters. He was just so likable in such a short amount of time. And I always complain about character deaths, like characters that you like. It always really bugs me when they just go out in random happenstance of some kind. Like I hated it when Kylo Ren just stabbed Han Solo, and I hated it when what's his name, Quinn, just fell into Jaws's mouth. Right, they just go out. Hero, his character his death had purpose. They made a likable character, and they killed him off with purpose to save everybody else on the ship. And I absolutely love that. So yeah, that's my first two goods, I guess, about this movie: Hero and the endearing characters. And speaking of dying, I think they did a really good job of mourning the characters who did die, but also moving the plot along. And that was kind of a big problem in Santa Jaws, right? The grandpa dies, and if someone dies and they're just like, that sucks.
Next. That was one of the problems with Santa Jaws, but yes.
No, only problem. but I mean, you know, they're talking about characters that have died, you know, an hour after they've died in the movie, right? In movie time. So it's, you know, days after. So it's like, remember these people, they existed and they affected our lives. But they kept chugging right along with the plot. And so that made me really happy. Let's see. I think, what else do we have here? Sorry, folks, I'm very scattered today. The whale calls, I liked how they introduced the whale calls in the beginning, and they used the whale calls to lure the Meg back in, saying ringing the dinner bell or something like that. I just love a good setup and payoff. I thought the idea of Rainn Wilson's character, that he was going, so he's like the rich eccentric billionaire, he's going to go kill the shark by himself to avoid lawsuits. I thought that was like an interesting thing. Like they played this really interesting line of him being like the evil billionaire and him being like somewhat sympathetic, but him also being like practical. And I thought that like I thought that was just a really interesting direction to take it, in that like it made a lot of sense. Like, well, we don't want to get sued for all these people who've died, so we're going to go take care of it ourselves. But that pushes him a little bit into the good column, because if they wanted to make him a bad guy, he could have said, I don't want anyone to know about this. We're going to blow up the research facility, so there's no one to talk about it, right? But they give him moments like that where you think like maybe he could do that, like that might be in his personality. So I just thought that was a very interesting choice. Let's see. I thought it was interesting that even though there is a sequel coming out, that they didn't really tease any sequels, or like that it might still be alive, which is, you know, very different. It's a different thing from movies now. It seemed like they felt comfortable with saying like this might be the only one of these ever made. And I think that's a bold choice, honestly. And my last one, the thermocline, is that what it's called? Like the cloud, debris cloud or whatever they have to go through to get into a different part of the ocean where there are things that no one's ever seen before. I thought that was a really cool way of getting like an ancient creature out. Just maybe we've seen things like that with going to the center of the earth, or like there's a jungle in Antarctica or something like that. But I just thought that was very interesting. And what a cool way to like get the sharks out and say like, oh, you know, we shouldn't have messed with this. What have we done? Now we've opened up this rift that like these prehistoric creatures can come out. I thought that was a really cool idea. I don't know if it was explained very well, because it took me kind of a while to start trekking with like what was really going on there. But I thought it was a very cool concept, and I can't wait to see what hopefully bigger, meaner things come out of there. So sorry, I've rambled on quite a bit with all the things that I like about this. Lance, what did you like about this movie?
So I'm going to take the reins here for a couple minutes, because I want to touch on a couple. Baby. To go back to Chris's web of schlock, I just want to bring up two things. One, I can't believe you did not bring up Cliff Curtis, who's an amazing actor.
He is.
And we've seen him in everything from, you know, Die Hard, you know, Live Free or Die Hard, and Fear the Walking Dead. So he's a great actor, and it was nice. It's always nice to see him in something. But I also wanted to touch on Paige Kennedy, who plays DJ. He actually worked with Rainn Wilson back in 2015 on a show on Fox called Backstrom, which was a really good, underrated detective show. So those guys have a prior history there, and I definitely recommend. It only lasted a season, unfortunately, but it was a really good show, and it's just one of those things that it didn't catch on for whatever reason. But as far as the good goes, I mean, I think Darby hit a lot of the key points. The characters overall, even all the characters, even if they had a small part, played an intricate part to the story. There wasn't any character that was there just for the sake of it, like, oh, we need another computer guy or we need another person to just die. everybody had an intricate part of the story. So I think that worked really well. And then the thermocline, as he talked about, I really liked. That's a plausible storyline for me, because that's kind of like, as he said, like the center Earth theory. There are actual theories out there of there being something of this nature deep in the ocean that we can't get to. So I kind of, like I said, I'm a kaiju guy, so I love kaiju films, and that kind of plays with the whole center Earth thing, which we see get revealed in Godzilla versus Kong and Journey to the Center of the Earth and stuff like that. So, and the CGI, I know CGI has been a thing with these shark movies. I think they did a pretty good job with the CGI. The megalodon looks pretty legit, and from what I can tell, it looks like it's going to stand the test of time for a little while. I don't think we're going to go back and watch this in 10 years and be like, my God, that doesn't look like a shark at all. Kind of like we did with Deep Blue Sea,
Where are they? That's not the ocean.
Yeah.
Maybe in Meg 2, they'll be using some of James Cameron's deep sea filming technology to just actually have a megalodon on set and film that.
Yeah, and that tracks.
One other good thing that I want to talk about is that the cinematography overall, there's some really good shots in this movie, even with the CGI sharks. The one, the trailer with it jumping out of the water, eating the other Meg. And I love the scene with the little girl underwater in the base when the shark is like staring at her through the glass. That was an amazing shot. Even though it's done CGI, it looks great. It felt intense. And that's what off the whole, what the hell was that? What did we do? What did we let out of the...
I did think it was a little weird. They're talking about finding this shark. The little girl is away from them. They feel something rumble the base. Their very first thought is it must be the megalodon. And 2, it must be after the little girl, because they're like, oh no, my daughter. It's like, why? I mean, obviously a mother would be concerned about her daughter, but it seems like they all knew that, like, oh, she's in that tube and the shark is biting at her.
This goes back to logic. This goes back to Chris's whole skeleton crew theory from last week, where you notice the little girl is away,
right?
So let's go find her. There's something that goes bump in the night.
Yeah. And of course, it's going to go after the little girl.
Well, yeah.
Chris, what are your thoughts?
So I'm not going to touch too much more on the music, but I loved the music. It felt epic in certain points. It felt like a blockbuster, but it also had elements of the horror movie and the thriller. And then it had some just really unique instrumentation sometimes, and this really kind of like broad sweeping romance to it. And it fit perfectly. But if you stop to listen, you're like, that's actually really interesting and not quite what you'd normally hear there. So that was really cool. I agree with everything both of you have said. I'm going to touch on just a couple things that similar. So they did character backstory for blockbusters perfect in this movie, which is the opposite of what happened in Deep Blue Sea. Like at first when I'm like, oh, of course it's his ex-wife, I roll my eyes. But then like everyone had these connections, and then they started like crossing each other, like, and you had the little dialogue of, oh no, they're cool with each other. You can date him. Like, so then you had this romance going on, but then you had the daughter who had a connection with him, and then the father, and then the friends. And they did a really good job of quickly bonding the audience and the characters to each other. I thought it was just really slick. And that was one of my complaints with Deep Blue Sea, is like, it was so much backstory, and yet I didn't care about a lot of these characters' connections with each other. This was just little hints of backstory. Some of them had more, but it just connected perfectly. The other thing, going to the kaiju films, I love the giant squid, because that opens the door to not just megalodons, but to any kind of crazy prehistoric creature that we want to bring into future sequels, right? And it also, this idea of that kind of heat belch that opened up the pocket that things could escape in. So there's other things that can be in the ocean They did a really good job of like, we thought there was one Meg, there are actually two Megs, because they said it closed, so we assumed only one got out, but you don't know what all got out. And if it happens again, what more can get out. So I think it's just you talked about how they really didn't show the idea of setting up a sequel. Like there's no stinger, there's nothing like that. But in a way, this is a really great way to set up a sequel and open the door to basically any kind of cool, crazy creature you want. You can have squid versus shark in this next movie if we want, to flip it. And so then my big good that we didn't really talk about, you've kind of touched on. I loved that it had all the pieces of a blockbuster. It also had hints of Jaws. It had hints of Jurassic Park. It had hints of Deep Blue Sea. It touched on a lot of things that came before it, but it rearranged it. All the pieces were there, but it rearranged it in a cool different order. Like we talked about the skeleton crew, but we also, when we talked about Jaws, we talked about how it starts out on a beach and everyone's in danger, right? And then it moves to where it's the second half of the movie is just three dudes in a boat. This is the opposite. It starts out with the skeleton crew and a couple people, and it moves inland to the beach. And at the very end, they draw it back out, but it moves in the other direction from small to a large scale attack. I like that it hints at the idea of Deep Blue Sea, where there's this underwater station that you would think that he would try and break through and maybe flood areas and attack it. So it hints at that idea of what they did in Deep Blue Sea. It doesn't go there at all, except for cracking the window. Yeah. Right.
They take it to different places where you would think it would be.
Correct. And that's the really cool thing, is that it moves, like almost every section is a different location, but it all tracks. It just felt really interesting that all those beats were there, but they were like flipped or twisted or just kind of, so it was really cool to see a blockbuster, but it was all the beats we'd seen before, but this just tweaked in a really fun and cool way. I like that at the midpoint, they kill the Meg, right? And they don't blow them up, they poison them.
Was that the original one? Was that the one that they were seeing first, or was that like a little one that came out?
There might have been a little one that came out, but that was a Meg, and as far as the audience knows, that's it, right? And because the movie's only halfway over, that something else is going to happen, but it was still cool to see that kind of like false victory. I like that beat, and they milked it, and then
it's really like, oh shit, there's a bigger one,
right? And it eats this one, and then that's the other thing. The Jurassic Park moment, it flipped it. Instead of the T-Rex coming in, the giant beast coming in to tear the raptors apart, it was thousands of little sharks coming in to devour this dying megalodon. So it was the reverse, but it was the same kind of thing. And so it was all those familiar tropes and beats, but done in a fresh, fun way. So yeah, that's my good.
Nice. Well, so moving on to bad then. Here's my big bads. There's not a lot. I will say that, the movie is cheesy in some parts. That I mentioned that there's kind of some logic leaps in some parts. But to me, like, I think those are all very overlookable, forgivable, because it's a popcorn movie, right? Like it's there for like high adrenaline entertainment in some ways. The most important thing is moving the plot along. And in doing that, they did that very well and gave you all this extra stuff with it, like actual likable characters and whatnot. But so a pet peeve of mine, and I think we've seen it in a lot of these movies so far, and I'm sure we'll see it many more times if we keep going with shark movies next year, is shooting at the water. I can't stand it when people shoot at the water in movies to kill a shark, because to my knowledge, bullets upon impact in the water scatter. They explode.
They call it out in this movie, though. They're like, seriously, why are you shooting at him? What's that going to do? And he's like, well, that's all I had time for.
Well, were they saying that because like it's ineffective to shoot something underwater, or are they saying that because it's silly to shoot little bullets at something so huge.
I'm assuming the bullets is something so huge, but still they do call it out slightly.
So yeah, that's just a pet peeve of mine. I wanted to say that at Jaws. I'm like, why did this experienced shark hunter start shooting the water? That seems really silly, but I didn't get there, and it came up here again. So I just wanted to call that out. Probably my biggest bad in the movie is that I don't know if they really have a good reason to keep messing with this shark. Like, I mean, I guess revenge is as good a reason as any. So that's why I brought the lawsuit thing up earlier. Like, okay, this guy doesn't want to get sued for these shark deaths, so he's going to go and try and take care of it on the sly. That makes sense. But yeah, isn't this a job for like the Navy to destroy something like this? And they call it out. They say like, oh, they don't believe us. Giant shark sounds like a prank call or whatever. But I'd be like, you know what? I'm going home. I'm going inland. I'm not getting eaten.
I think they felt responsibility for unleashing it. And I also think that time was of the essence because they did have the tracker on it. They knew what they were dealing with. It could go dormant. It could go hide out. So I think it was a time issue and a responsibility issue.
Yeah, but I mean, there's all sorts of really dangerous creatures in the ocean, and the ocean's like super big.
But they didn't release those creatures.
Yeah, I don't know. I think if they felt responsible, or if it was for revenge, I think they could have really, really put a lantern on that and really brought that out. Like, we're gonna get this son of a right. We're gonna like I don't know.
Yeah, okay, fair enough.
There was a part where I was just like, man, I'd go home.
You wouldn't have a movie, but yeah.
I got to give this letter to Hero's wife instead of just getting...
So I'm not taking Darby on any fishing expeditions here.
Hey man, we can go on a fishing expedition. It's just if a giant shark starts attacking us, I'm going home. Yeah, we ain't gonna go. We ain't gonna go find it if it leaves us alone. Let's see, and my last bad, and it's not really a bad. It's just more of a, I don't know. Is it that big? 75 feet, I think they said. Is that really like that big? I mean, it's big for a shark, right? But like, it's still smaller than a blue whale, isn't it?
So a blue whale is 100 feet long.
Boom.
75 feet is large for megalodon, since, well, from what I know, they were supposed to be about 60 feet. But You're still talking about a shark that's, the size of a Greyhound bus.
Yeah, see, and I was hoping for a shark the size of a football field.
Well, you got to go see Meg 2 this Friday, buddy.
Maybe. So, there's the poster for it where it shows the person like floating on the inner tube, and then there's like a big shark that looks like it could eat that person in one bite, and then there's a huge mouth underneath them. And I'm like, I don't know if the portions line up, and so I was just expecting like this thing that could swallow a football stadium. So I don't know.
Maybe we need to have a movie called Football Stadium Size Shark.
We'd be watching it for sure.
Oh man!
All right, Lance, what are you guys? Yeah, what do you got?
So I'm just gonna say this: judging by Darby's list of bad stuff, then I think we can all safely assume there's not really a whole lot of bad in this movie, because it sounds like he's really reaching for some bad.
Yeah, it's more like it's a wish list of like, I wish the shark were bigger. It's not bad, it's big, but I mean, it's not the size of a football stadium.
Well, watching the movie, I was just a little, not that big.
Me personally, I don't have a whole lot of bad for this film. I mean, I'm really surprised it's only got a 5.6 rating on IMDb, because it's really not bad at all. If I say anything that was bad about this, besides shooting in the water as it would be, I think my biggest gripe might just be Jason Statham. And I away from him as an actor, but this was a typical Statham character, which only sucks because he is capable of a lot more. But it is what it is. You know, you needed a guy like Statham. You might as well just get Statham. Yeah, so that's probably my biggest gripe. But he is so good at playing that type of character. I don't want him to be typecast as that, because when you watch something like Snatch or Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels, or even Spy, where it's a comedy film, he's hilarious.
He has a big range. You're right.
Right. And it's just, he gets typecast into these, you know, crazy action things. Like, I almost feel like that's like a normal day for him in his life, is what I feel like.
Well, apparently he's like some sort of expert swimmer.
You know, jumped a dirt bike, you know, like that's just how you do.
Right.
Well, you mentioned its rating. I was reading up on it, and interestingly enough, it was nominated, I think, for a few Razzies, a few Raspberry Awards, which are supposed to be given to the worst movies. And I don't know,
opposite of the Oscars.
Yeah, maybe we have some real thick skin around here because of what we watch normally, and we look at this, we're like, oh my God, it's so good. And apparently other people, more highbrow viewers.
If you think that this deserves if you think that this deserves a Razzie, go back and watch the movies we've watched in the last 3 months.
Yeah, for real. Go back to Battlefield Earth.
Go check out.
Right. Okay, so I don't like Lance. I don't have a lot of bads. So some of the blockbusterness was a little lazy. I think it's a long movie, and it moves the pace really well, like you said, Darby, but it's over 2 hours. Mm-hmm. And like, I get the campiness and like the trope of like, he had the bad thing happen and now he's in this far off place and he's drunk all the time. But that took a really long time. And I've seen that a million times. And unlike some of the other things I've seen a million times, they didn't really spin it any cool way for me.
It didn't go anywhere.
It was just kind of like, it was very 80s. It felt like we've got to go get him and we got to sober him up, and then he's going to raid the castle or whatever. And I love that beat, but like, you didn't know this character yet, and he didn't have the writing, at least dialogue wise, didn't have like any of those like 80s Bruce Willis, like really zinger one-liners that you can pull off without knowing the character yet. Like, I don't know, that felt like it took too long and it didn't really add anything to the film. Yeah. So I wish they would have they could have kept him a drunk and somewhere else and all that, but just twisted it a little bit.
And let me throw this in there that old Longmire, that was the actor, right? Who played Walt Longmire. Why wouldn't he believe him? Like, why did he have to turn to a life of drunkenness? Because he wasn't believed that this submarine imploded under like miles of water, and that there might be like a giant squid, or there might be we know that for a fact that there are
they're assuming that there are flora and fauna down there that they've never seen before. When they're like, yeah, and it attacked me, like, no, you're insane. So yeah, I don't know. That's probably my big bad. And then there are little moments throughout that kind of are just off. You brought one up with the assuming that it was the little girl getting attacked by the megalodon. Mm-hmm. Why? It feels like there was like something cut there for time that might have stitched that together.
Yeah.
But there were a couple moments like that. And that's really about it. I mean, it's a super cheesy movie, but that's what you signed up for.
Right. Exactly.
Yep. So anyone else, or should we move into Schlock?
Let's move on to Schlock. And so I want to get right to something, because it's been brought up a few times already, and I really want to get into it. This movie, could it potentially be connected to the Monsterverse, the new Monsterverse with King Kong and Godzilla, and I think that Mothra is in it. What's he fighting in the first movie, Lance? the first of the new movies.
The
moth things.
Movies they're all dead, but it was another Titan. But I mean, for the sake of argument, I mean, I could see it being a part of the MonsterVerse potentially. I mean, with the underwater thermocline and everything, like it's a good segue working off of that theory. And realistically, it would still be relatively small in comparison to Godzilla, because Godzilla is your football stadium.
So maybe we get a football stadium size one and have it face off against old Godzilla.
It would be really interesting though, because Godzilla's never really fought a sea creature like in the water. Like he's never taken on a giant shark. So it definitely would be interesting to see how that could work.
Yeah, because he'd lose. No, I don't know. I have no shark in this fight. So, but I did think that was really interesting. Like, hey man, if you're gonna go big with these creatures, to me it felt very much like Godzilla King of the Monsters and Godzilla versus Kong. Like the way the movies were paced and the types of characters there were. To me, I think tonally it would slip so easy into that series of films.
Yeah, they do definitely have very similar tones. And one thing I want to bring up, since we're in Schlock, is you guys have brought up the pacing of the movie a couple of times, and the character depth, which I really think is looked a lot in this movie. But what's odd to me is that you take a movie like this and it gets like such a poor rating and Razzie nominations, and like realistically, you sit back and watch it, it's actually really well written in comparison to what being reviewed as. It's almost like Tropic Thunder. Like people smash Tropic Thunder or they think it's hilarious, but realistically, Tropic Thunder is like a super intelligent comedy that's completely satirical. Or if you take a look at like Hot Fuzz, Hot Fuzz is probably one of the best written movies out there as far as character and plot movement. Like everything in that movie moves the storyline along. So it's funny when you take a look at these dramas that get nominated for all this crap, and then it's like, but Hot Fuzz was written better than 12 Years a Slave or Titanic or any other bull crap.
Yeah, just like a tighter story, more well motivated.
I think especially like popcorn movies and comedies, the popcornness and the comedy really overshadow how well written some of them are. And if you were to look at them without that big thing that's covering them, you'd realize how well written a lot of them are and how structurally sound they are, and just really good movies besides the comedy. And that's just like this bonus I totally agree with you.
So some things I want to point out. Something I would have liked to have seen. Trying to figure out, like, while I was watching this, I'm trying to figure out what the third act weapon would be, and it turned out to be the whale calls, which they put in. They did their due diligence of a setup, but in trying to find like what the theme of the movie is, and it's this idea of Jason Statham. He like keeps leaving people behind. It opens with he has to leave some of his team behind when he goes to rescue the sub crew. Next, he leaves Hero behind, and I think someone even says like, "That's you. You just leave people behind." And I thought like, okay, this is gonna play out in some way. Like maybe he's the one that stays behind the last time, or they bring up the idea. I think they say it's not about the ones you save, or what is it? It's not about the ones you leave behind, but the ones you save. I think is
that's what the line.
And so I was really hoping that this would all come back at the end and be like the people that he saved in the very opening scene of the movie, that they were like the people that came through to like save the day, because
Right,
like,
they brought the ship in or some weapon or something.
yeah, like, it's a good thing that he saved these people, because it turns out this dude is now like the Navy general that came in to blow the shark up or something.
Right. So you know what I was hoping for in Act 3? You can't. I know his name's Jonas, but it's close enough to Jonah.
Jonah.
Right. And the Meg's mouth is big enough to just thread the needle. Right. You could get in there alive and cut your way out. And I thought that would have been really cool.
Well, I
just the idea of like his name's Jonas. Like at some point in time, I expected him to get swallowed. That's all I'm saying.
Part 2, baby. Yeah, when they ate the other computer geek guy, he didn't like chomp him up or anything. He just swallowed him right up. And I was like, that dude's in there. He's still in there. He's typing away inside. He
wrote a whole novel for his wife.
Yeah, yeah, for real. Also, I thought it was very interesting. So the shark is attacking all the beachgoers. They sort of lure it away with the whale sounds. But I believe because of the attack, there are some helicopters out circling around trying to film it or watch it. I don't remember.
Yeah, exactly. I think it was news crews from that city coming out to see what all the hullabaloo was about.
Well, I don't think story-wise they were really there for any purpose other than crashing, so that the helicopter could crash into the boat so that we could get all of our characters reasonably into the water to be in danger from this giant shark. And to me, that felt like such a, like, this is why this is in the movie. Like, there's no other purpose for these people except to get our characters in danger.
I would have rather had the shark get them in the water.
Yeah.
That's one of those moments in the movie that it brings you back to the campiness. Like, the movie is very good at being just under going over the top. You know what I'm saying? Like, even the premise is kind of ridiculous because it's like the Meg and you think it's this huge thing, but it's just believable enough to not go over the edge. Moments like Darby said, like, that's the only reason that helicopter was there, was to get everybody in the water. You know, that was written.
Yep, for sure. But yeah, this was a
point. The shark could have just as easily just hit the boat and knocked everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah, capsize it. Come on, capsize it.
It's all the rage for whales right now. It's what they're into. Why couldn't a shark do it?
Well, I tell you what, if it was the size of a football stadium, it would absolutely have tipped that thing right over. Also, did anyone else think, so the movie's called The Meg. Did anyone else think Family Guy?
Yep.
Shut up, Meg.
That would have been just a great line. Yeah.
Meg.
I think maybe the Meg isn't the most intimidating name.
It is succinct though, which is nice in a title. But you don't really know what you're getting unless you see the poster.
Well, he says in it, man versus Meg isn't a fight. And I thought that's a cool line. Okay, name the movie The Meg, right? But couldn't it have just been like the Mega? Because it's like, big, like, I don't know. The Meg, if you don't see the movie poster, you have no idea what it is. Like, it could be a comedy about like a football player or a teacher, or
you're like really football thing tonight.
Yeah, it's just on my brain.
It's Monday night.
When's football start again? Yeah, are you ready for football?
Are you ready for some shark attacks? Oh man.
Well, what does everybody else have for schlock? Chris, what's your schlock?
The whole thing, man. It's I've hammered on this before, but it's got all those beats. It's got the child by themselves playing, and it's got the ball rolling, and there's no sound except for the sound of the little ball rolling and the light up shoes, and like it just keeps going, and then Lance brought up that amazing shot where she's standing there and there's the glass and then the sea behind her. And then the Meg just comes in and just amazing. Like it's such a trailer moment. Things like that aren't your normal schlock, but it's schlocky in its own way. And then, I don't know if this is schlock or not, and you touched on it, but I do want to bring it up again, is Rainn Wilson's character and his performance. Like other people, I think would have just been comic relief or just been super villain or just like he had so many nuances of that character that you're against him, you're for him, you're like kind of indifferent. You're like, what's he up to? And then his motivation was so solid and his performance and his death was amazing. I loved it. Because his hand stayed up there, and like you just had that horror beat of like, oh, he lived, and he's crawling under the carcass of a whale, which is just amazing. And then there's just that pause, and he's like, oh, and then bam, yeah. So it was
kind of weird that they did like a double psych out on the shark, right? First they catch the wrong shark, and then it's a whale,
right?
Same trick twice, I guess.
Well, I mean, one's a shark and one's a whale. They're totally different creatures.
So I just got a text here. That's true. I just got a text here. Megan, who's behind the scenes, making sure this doesn't go offline, and she's probably going to be playing us out relatively soon. But she had to mention that she is also the Meg. So I would never say shut up, Meg. In real life, that needs to go on air. So. But I don't call her Meg anyway, so that's other folks. But Lance, what schlock do you have? There's got to be some schlock. You didn't hardly have any bad. You got to have some schlock.
I mean, I'm kind of with Chris on this one. I mean, the movie is, like I said, it's just undergoing over the top with pretty much everything. But it's schlock like in its own way. It did everything. It did a lot of cliches, but it made it its own. It's really hard to pick out something that's like real schlocky. It didn't hit on the schlock really. Mm-hmm. I mean, you've got tropes like we talked about, but like the way Chris brought it up, I mean, a lot of them have been tweaked just enough that you can see the trope, but it's original enough to fit into this movie by itself.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for sure. Well,
I mean, the only thing I would say is, I mean, is there any other way to kill a shark besides blowing it up?
Let other sharks eat it.
Right. I thought that was a great ending because like he's riding it, he slices it, and then he stabs it in the eye. Okay, that was schlock. When it comes out of the water and it's all slow motion and he's got the little lance type thing and he just pushes it through the eye into the brain,
yeah,
and then falls away. Like that's classic schlock. That's amazing. It's so epic and so over the top and hilarious.
I relate that to Thomas Jane's character in Deep Blue Sea, though. Like it was something that had been done, but it did it just differently enough to make it its own.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I could, that's definitely a schlock type thing. We're probably going to see more of that nonsense in the second one.
Well, go ahead.
I was going to say, I did like the fact that, I bring up blowing up the shark because it's so big. Like watching the movie, I thought that would have been the way they go, like hit it with artillery or something,
Yeah, they made those depth charges just for that, but it just got a whale instead.
Right. So I did like the fact that as odd as it would be to try and tranquilize something that large, but they did change the death of the. I mean, we've seen it so many times. Not even in the movies that we've touched on this month, but like typically, like that's just how sharks die in movies, is they get blown up.
Yeah, I would say 4 out of 5 times blown up.
Just blow it up. Nuke it from orbit. It's the only way to be safe.
Yeah, go ahead.
The only schlock that I have left, and I just got to touch on it, is "Hey Mickey, You're So Fine."
I can't believe I did not bring that up. Yes, pure schlock.
I thought Tony Basil had a real tight grip on that song, and so I'm really I'm wondering how and specifically why is that song featured so much in this movie?
Oh, it's the end credit song.
Yeah, is it because it sort of sounds like "Hey Meggie"? Hey Maggie, you're so fine. Maybe.
So you say that in real life?
Maybe. Gentleman never tells, Chris. So yeah, let's do some last thoughts and wrap up our final Sharksploitation movie. Chris, let's go to you, and then I want to give the final word to Lance.
Yeah. Okay. So again, back to the puzzle pieces of other movies, the beats I haven't mentioned. It's the same opening beat of the boss who's super rich in charge of it coming for a visit, same as in Deep Blue Sea, right? There's just so many different things going on. And we're saying we're not singling out a lot of schlock, but the whole thing is schlock. I mean, they go to get him in a helicopter, and it ends with him in the air stabbing a megalodon in the eye. It's pure camp, and it's pretty fun.
All right. Well, Lance, what are your final thoughts on this movie? What are your final thoughts on Shark Week in general? The floor is yours, my friend.
I mean, as far as the Meg goes, I agree with Chris. I mean, it's, the whole movie in and of itself, I guess, could be considered schlock at its finest. I mean, it's, and what I think I appreciate the most about this movie is that it's not one of those movies that it's so bad it's good. Like, it's a legit good movie. And I think we talked about this, last time, but it's this generation's, Sharkbuster, if you will. The 70s,
movie of a generation.
And then 25 years later, we get Deep Blue Sea, and now 25 years later, we get The Meg. So, I'm hoping that the sequel does not follow the same path as like Jaws 2 or Deep Blue Sea, where it's much, much worse than the original. Yeah. So I'm hoping that the returning characters, want to be there, unlike Roy Scheider, Jaws 2, who just did not give a shit.
Yeah.
And then as far as month as a whole, I mean, I just, I really appreciate you guys letting me, be a part of it. It's your guys' show, it's your guys' channel, and, it's your world. I'm just living in it. So I appreciate you guys having me on week in and week out. And I hope we do it again, for, something else.
For sure,
we
man.
definitely want to, thank you for sticking with us for 5 weeks in a row and 5 roller coaster shark movies.
Well, I think that is all the time that we have for today. And I will say it again, Lance, you really were a special guest. And I don't mean that in a short bus way. I mean it in we just really blessed to have you on and be able to share these weird schlark movies with you. We're definitely going to have you come back. I know we want to get more guests onto the show and do more things like this. So sometime in the future, my friend, we will be doing it some more. Chris,
what's next week?
So next week, week after next, we are returning to form. We are watching Billy the Kid versus Dracula. That's right. This is the sister movie to Jesse James' Frankenstein's Daughter, which we reviewed last year. So if you haven't seen that, go ahead and check it out, because we are returning to the world of the Wild West and horror. I am Darby Ellis Wilson. This is Chris Anonymous. This is Lance, the obscure movie guy, and we've been compelled by Schlock. See you in 2 weeks. Bye. And boy, can that dog swim.
I am compelled by Schlock. Compelled by Schlock. Compelled by Schlock. Wait, no.